Hey everybody, it's been a little bit of time. Not that much time, but I'm going to be gone this week. And I need to get some stuff, and I actually have some things on my mind, so I'm going to go at it here. Last video actually had, I wouldn't call it buzz, because buzz means buzz. I didn't get buzz, but considering, it was the buzz of a small, it was a gnat like, yeah, that. I think I got a little bit of that. Maybe because I went for a more controversial and difficult topic. Fear not, that doesn't make me want to go, oh, I'll just go run for controversial topics. I'll do hot takes. No. I don't want to do that. But I do have a little kind of a ranty thing on my mind. Oh, by the way, I want to apologize. These aren't my glasses. My glasses died this week. And so these are these are readers, and now I'm waiting for my new glasses to show up. And then I'm going off on a college tour this week because I'm going off on a college tour with my son. I'm going to go look at a school. And so it's going to be, these are busy days. I did some of that last week too. But yeah, there are some things on my mind. Some things that actually happened in my life that reminded me of this. So it's all sort of coalesced. And now I have a certain reaction. This is a little ranty. I think musicians need a reset about the way they think about music. And the messages that they're getting right now aren't always the best ones. And I guess to a degree I'm talking about through the prism of social media, but a lot of times that's where the conversation's happening. So it's okay to have that discussion. I see an awful lot of a sort of condescending, almost sneering videos from a lot of folks who are basically music business people, musical entrepreneurs who are really upset with musicians because, damn it, they just don't spend enough time being business people, because that's the highest. If you continue to climb up the ziggurat, that's clearly the capstone. That's the best thing you could possibly be, because all that matters is bread. A lot of that message, a lot of that going on. We all got to be business people. And if we only understood business better. Now, look, musicians aren't great at business. I never have been. It's something you have to work on. And it's a good thing to work on. Business sense, knowing how to present yourself, knowing how to write an email. Yeah, you should. So it should be in the toolbox, right? But you shouldn't spend all your day thinking about that. Hopefully you've gotten that down at some point and you can do that. But you don't need to think about it in those terms all the time. What you should be doing is thinking about music, because we're musicians. So there's a lot of that, a lot of videos about that. And they are angry. You just got to work on your marketing, your branding. Oh my God. So a lot of that. I'm not saying all of that information is useless, but the emphasis, again, musicians need the reset button. And that messaging, that narrative can fly away. That would be helpful. Another one that you're going to get is musicians need to be, the most important thing, the end of this great journey that we're on is to become educators. Because the top thing, the most wonderful thing you could ever be is be a music educator. I'm not knocking. Maybe I'm knocking. Music educators are fine. But I think the job of musicians isn't a job. Music isn't a job. And shouldn't be looked at it that way. And I think deep down we know this. Music's a cause. Music is look, it's a dirty word. It's a cause, and the ultimate dirty word. We're in the service of art. Sorry, art's a real thing. We should care about it. We're the only people who will take care of our art. Music business doesn't take care of art. Never did. They're hardly right. They're at best they can be sometimes useful partners when they're not gouging and trying to rip people off. That's what they can be. Doesn't mean don't do business with them. It means keep an eye on them. It sure as hell doesn't mean trust them. Don't do that. But I think we need to assert, we're artists. And if you're not an artist and you're just, I just play and you're a sideman and you just think of it as being a business, wow. I don't care how well you play. You end up being pretty empty. A career sideman. I think you got to create something. And I think you've got to be committed to a cause, to the cause of art. Yeah, I think you should. I think we spend our whole lives like that. And I know plenty of people who do. It's very, very, very freaking cool. But I'm tired of being told I've got to be a better business person. And it's all about business, and I guess they're not really, they're only kind of musicians. They're really business people. And that tells you something too, right? The reason they're so frustrated and they're angry at musicians, right, is maybe because they're only marginally successful at it. Look, it's impossible out there. I know, it's very hard to be, there's tons of amazing musicians. There's just no shortage of them, and you'll never hear of them. That's not their fault. That's a machine that doesn't know. Maybe it's a business. Maybe it's the fault of the business people. Maybe the business people, maybe with all their branding and all their marketing knowledge, maybe they haven't marketed very well. Maybe there's a ton of music and that's really good, and they've never been able to sell it. Oh, maybe that's a more accurate depiction of what is and has been going on forever. So I don't think it's our job we could try to fix the business, but the business obviously is a disaster. Let's segue a little bit, all right? I had an interesting experience this week. I saw a Rick Beato video. Rick was talking about, he does these series of the greatest songs by a particular band or something, right? And this probably goes back a couple of years or more. I'm not sure offhand. But one of the bands he picked was The Cure. And I wouldn't have thought of Rick Beato, maybe I should have, as necessarily being a Cure fan. But my ears pricked up because The Cure is actually a guilty pleasure of mine. When Disintegration came out, I was just the end of my college years or right around there. And I remember getting Disintegration, and I'd never listened to The Cure because I thought Fascination Street did some interesting things. And The Cure got me because of a counterline, not the main thing that Smith was doing. And that was my gateway drug. And I was like, wow, because it was, as I came to learn from listening to The Cure for a long time, it was typically over-the-top romanticism, right? So anyway, Beato talked about The Cure, and I was like, and I hadn't thought of The Cure in a long time. And I was like, man, yeah, I really swoon for that. All the romanticism and everything about it, and those, they really wrote simple, smart stuff. Pardon me. Pardon me. So I thought of The Cure, and then I had The Cure on in my car. My son's 17, And he likes to listen to stuff, but it's much more EDM-ish and stuff like that. And I never tell him what to listen to or anything like that. But every now and then, he'll get turned on to something. He got turned on to some Beethoven recently. And I was like, okay, that's which one? And it was Moonlight Sonata, but not the obvious movement. It's the third movement, the fast one. And he was like, oh, wow, the energy, but also the romanticism. He was like, well, why is this getting me? And I was like, I think it's this. He's like, yes. And we were talking about particular notes and things that are emphasized and things that, he was having a romantic, in the 19th century Byron Keats sort of sense, a moment of romanticism. He was connecting with that. Cool. And he got in my car the other day, and I was listening to The Cure. I put on Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, first tune. And I was just listening to it. And he stopped what he was doing and was like, what's that? I said, it's this old band, The Cure. So we started to listen to, he was like, I like it. Play that again. Play that again. And it's the first track from that album, which is dark, very dark, and just pushing it. And, I think it's like, I think you're about 3.5 minutes into the tune. This is the first tune on a pop record. And the singer doesn't come in until like 3.5 minutes into the song. Can you imagine anyone even attempting that today? Like, it was considered risky then too. Very risky. Today, you'd never do it because everything's straight down Broadway. But they didn't give a shit. And they didn't, not because they were into the music business. They weren't into it for marketing and branding. They didn't wait those 3.5 minutes for any of that. They did it because they had something to say. They were going to make you deal with it. And they want to emphasize how far they would go and how far they would push that crescendo. Because they were interested in art. Even as a pop band, they were interested in art. So, we were listening to The Cure. And my son says, tell me more about these guys. And I said, at some point I pick up my phone and I look up The Cure, right? And just so that I could show him a picture of what Robert Smith was all about and, just how out there The Cure was. I loved the whole act, honestly, and I think Smith was great. And this was like about a week ago. So I take a look at it and I'm like, yeah, so here's The Cure. And as I'm looking it up to show him pictures of The Cure, I also see that The Cure is playing Madison Square Garden in New York City starting in 2 days for 3 nights at Madison Square Garden. Now, going to arena rock isn't something I don't remember the last time I've done that, okay? Not my thing. And I saw it and I was like, The Cure will never be what I remember from Head on the Door through Wish, those 4 unbelievable albums. It'll never be that again. If you go, legacy rock bands can be lacking energy, lacking tempos, and just never sounds the same. It can be really, really, really crushingly bad. But I saw him. I'm like, want to go? He's like, yeah, let's go. So I bought tickets to The Cure. Fine. And I got the t-shirt. I got the poster. And I was blown away by this. But they sounded great. They played for 3 hours straight. The crowd at Madison Square Garden stood, I believe, for almost all of it. It was an absolute love fest. Smith sounded great. He's no kid. He sounded great. They burned for 3 hours. He sounded the same as he'd always sounded. Maybe it's just not tough vocally, or he doesn't kill himself too hard. I don't know. But they sounded great. And my son was like, yeah. Dug it. Fine. And then my glasses broke. and I had to go get new glasses, and I'm waiting for new glasses. My new glasses are going to show up, and I had some time in between getting my eyes checked and the other things, and we're waiting for the folks to. Oh, she'll be back in like 10 minutes. She's on break now. And I'm walking around a mall, and I go into a Barnes and Noble, and there's a little vinyl section there, right? And I'm like, oh, I know. I think the vinyl thing is weird, but that people are listening to vinyl again, which is not huge, but there's a little bit of it. Okay, but I went and looked, and guess what I found? I found "Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me" by The Cure. Gotta love that freaking eyeball. So them. Anyway, so I bought my kid. I bought this for my son. And I think he really was like, oh, that's really, really cool. And I'm not going to be the first person to say this, but things the music business has done terribly is the utter capitulation to streaming. It's a great service. It's great that you can get whatever you want, right? The delivery system is spectacular. The economic model put on it, where the propeller heads make all the money and the musicians make nothing. Don't believe me. If you're not familiar with Blake Morgan, remember that name. Check out Blake Morgan. This is he's a label owner. He's a singer-songwriter, incredibly bright guy. He's gotten legislation started in Congress for so that musicians get paid for music, for airplay and various things. Fought with Spotify like hell. He knows them and knows just how corrupt and awful they are. So I'm not going to try and say, oh, we should all go back to listening to records. But here's the thing we missed. It used to be, you got a thing, a tactile thing that you could hold and own. I think people like owning stuff. I don't think we want to rent our music. People say, oh, nobody cares. Yeah, people care. We had that tactile thing, then we got a smaller tactile thing, we got CDs. But you had to spend money and you got a thing, which meant it had value. And we've gotten to a point where now there's an icon on your phone. It's not even a thing. And it doesn't represent an album. It represents every album ever made, ever. There's no physical manifestation in this culture of music. There isn't. You don't, unless you go out the tiny record section, right? Remember huge record stores? Some of you won't. Some of us do. Enormous places where you could get tons of records. And honestly, I think we were in better shape. I think the musical culture was in a better shape because it was in every town. You could go to an actual place. It wasn't just this abstract idea. You didn't live in the cloud. Right? It was a thing. You could go to a place and you could listen, you'd get stuff. And I think look, it doesn't mean that streaming can't happen, but the way we've set that up and the loss of ownership has just made music, devalued it. So no wonder, things are, and then you've got nothing short of criminal business people saying, we'll make all the profits and we'll give you nothing. And the music business, okay, went along. Their businesses were destroyed. They didn't put up much of a fight on that one. They agreed with letting their businesses be destroyed. because this is the wave of the future. Now, I'm not saying we should go back. I'm not somebody like that. But I do think, I think there's a common thread here, that the only thing that counts is the almighty dollar here. And I think, again, musicians need a reset. And certainly the culture needs a reset. It can't be the only thing that matters. We keep score with money. We've got to get out of that mindset. I'm not saying we should all, workers of the world unite. I'm not, okay, I'm not saying that. I like making money. It's the same as, but the system that we're in place now, it doesn't serve music. It's, serves business. Which reminds me of another thing. Every year there's the Grammys. If you win a Grammy, and I know people have gone, and I know people have, been there, and I know people have been on records that have won. And listen, you win a Grammy at the end of your life, it's what they put on your tombstone, and I get it. It is a huge, huge thing. Okay? But let's keep in mind what it is. It's a music business conclave where they give out awards to the people who made them the most money. It's about the music business. Small m, large B. It's a music business event. Almost any kind of music that's a little more advanced or a little more adventurous, that doesn't make the program. There's only popular music in the program. All of those other styles, they do in the afternoon before what they call the pre-tape. No one even uses tape anymore. They call it the pre-tape. If you're a classical musician, you play jazz, you might get a Grammy, but no one will ever see it because they do that in the afternoon for those people. So it's a music business thing. And again, if you win one, I am happy for you. I am thrilled. It's great. You get that. It's a wonderful piece of recognition. But it really doesn't mean that much. It means you've had a business success, a music business success. It's great. It's great. It's great. Doesn't have a lot to do. It has nothing to do with art. And has very little to do with, even with music. It has a lot to do with business. So, I don't think that's a terrible thing to say, to state that. That is where it's at. It's kind of always been where it's at. But I think we've gone so far down that road at this point, and that no one is standing up for art. I'm sure there are. There are people, I suppose. But those voices, they're just not being heard, and not being heard enough. So I think we have to speak up for it. And I think musicians need to increasingly grab hold and simply not stand for being dictated to. That, we've got to be business people and we've got to care about our branding. You'll figure it out. I'm sure people will figure it out. But create some art. If you create some really, really good music, you at least give yourselves a shot of being heard. Again, it requires the big indifferent machine to decide that they are going to look kindly upon you. There's really not a hell of a lot you're going to do about that. But that's not our problem. Our problem is to do good stuff. And hopefully we make some connections along the way. And there are some business people out there who sit there and go, ooh, that's a cool thing. Maybe we can sell it. And maybe they can sell it. But usually good work, when it is successful, happens in spite of the business people, not because of them. They almost never get it right. Remember, the screenwriter William Goldman, who said nobody knows anything. Keep that quote in mind. The business almost never is in the business of predicting what people like and almost always get it wrong. And stuff is a success and everyone's surprised. No one knows what's going to land right or what's going to... So therefore, do what you feel right about. And maybe it lands and people dig. But at least you can look in the mirror and know you didn't spend your life trying to aim the ball and placate to people. Robert Smith, my cure man here, he's in there. He's in there. That wasn't an image everyone said was going to sell. He never really, even though he was into pop music, he wasn't that much of a sellout. I don't know if he's a sellout at all. They could have been bigger, and they intentionally backed off from it because they saw pitfalls to that level of popularity. They liked that niche. They'd done fine, but they want to keep some integrity and hopefully keep it going. But there was a balance to be achieved. At least they recognized there was a balance to be achieved. You know, a lot of people in pop music sell their soul. All right, that's a whole other world. And it's usually not about music. It's all on ego and a lot of other stuff. But anyway, so I hope you'll take these thoughts, and I think we've got to be. I think we need to take control. We need to not be ashamed of saying words like art. We need to defend it. We need to make some. We don't have to become great educators. That's not right. Let the educators later on figure out what we were doing was good, and then you can teach people about it. But no, it's not our job to be that. And it's certainly not our job to be business people. Knowing all that is good. Yeah, having some savvy is great. But our job primarily is to be creators. So let's create. All right, guys, I'll talk to you in a week.